Hey guys, my name is Christina and welcome to another episode of What the F*** Did I Just Watch? I'm here with my best friend and co-host Brian, where every week we will be rolling a 26-face die that will determine the first letter of the movie we will watch this week. The twist is that one of us, or both of us, have never seen the movie before. So join us as we share our thoughts on the movie, have a few laughs, and discuss what the f*** we just watched. Hello everyone, welcome back. This is Christina, and I am here with my best friend Pants.
Hello.
It has been a very long week, and I was pretty excited to do this again. I hope you guys liked the last podcast. If you didn't see it, well, you wouldn't have seen it. Wow. If you didn't hear it, we covered Wild Wild West, starring Will Smith, which was a lot of fun. And so, finding time during the week to watch these movies can be really challenging, but I'm really excited about it because it has allowed me to really structure a day in which I know it's kind of me time. How do you feel
Agreed.
about it?
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. It's been fun to force Liv into watching these with me because she's not always as invested, which I understand. She's not doing the podcast.
And it's hard to be invested in the movies we've watched so far.
That kind of makes it fun too.
Right.
It's a little change of pace.
But definitely for someone who's not having to record about the movie, it's that much harder to be somewhat invested.
Yes.
It's easier to just sleep.
Yeah. Which we've been doing a lot of.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So if you guys were with us last week, we did roll the die at the end of the episode. And the letter it landed on was L. So after much deliberation, and if we could talk about that for a second, there are so many movies. We have to filter through so many movies that we have already seen. And there are some that I haven't where I'm like, we're not doing this yet. But this week we chose Left Behind. Pants has seen it. I'd never seen it before, but I did watch
I had not seen it. Neither of us had seen this.
You hadn't seen it?
No.
Oh my god, this whole time I thought you had already seen it.
No, when you suggested it, I was like, I mean, that's going to be horrible. But yes, absolutely.
Oh, man.
I mean, I've been looking for an excuse to watch it because on my own time, no.
Oh, yeah.
No part of me wanted to.
Yeah.
But sure.
I mean, it's also Nicolas Cage. You have to be in a very specific mindset, I feel like, to watch him act. Every time I think of him, I think of that meme. You know which one I'm talking about. There's
a lot of them.
Where he looks crazy.
That's a lot of his memes.
There's one that people send when they're grinning or looking insane.
My favorite would be the GIF with his hair blowing in the wind in slow motion from Con Air. I feel that.
Well, we won't get into that yet, but remind me of hair in the wind.
Okay. I'll do my best.
Well, the Imdb plot for this movie. A small group of survivors are left behind after millions of people suddenly vanish and the world is plunged into chaos and destruction. It stars Nicolas Cage, Leah Thomas, her daughter Cassi Thomas, and Chad Michael Murray. It was directed by Vic Armstrong, who also did the Adventures of Young Indiana Jones TV series. And he also was the stunt coordinator for Thor, Amazing Spider-Man, and Mummy 3. Their budget on this film was $16 million. They grossed in the US and Canada $14 million. And as far... so sad. As far as ratings go, IMDb gave them a 3.1.
Tell me the Rotten Tomatoes.
Mind you, the Rotten Tomato score is out of 100. They got 1%. That should tell you what we got into this week. We did watch it using Prime with ads.
Yes, it was on the kind of sub-service that Prime offers, which is IMDb TV, which is an ad-based service. So it's not good enough to be on Prime.
Yep.
So that should also tell you something.
Was it alarming to you, the way that they placed the ads?
Oh, the ads were horribly placed.
It was right in the middle of somebody having an exchange, like a conversation, or right as something was going to happen, but not necessarily like a big event. It was you were just watching, and then they interrupted, and it almost felt like that moment where you're like, "This is where I can decide if I'm going to get up or continue to watch this movie."
Yeah, I mean, you could tell it was probably the ads were placed there by a software,
yes,
or an AI. It's definitely not structured like a TV show where there's ad breaks and things like that. It's just random. There was an ad right at the end of the movie, literally with a minute left of the movie before credits hit, and I waited through the ad just to see a slow motion shot of some shit, and then the credits rolled.
I actually think that you're giving a little too much credit, because I think it was like less than 30 seconds, because it was the pan out at the very end.
Yes.
By the way, if we haven't already said it, this is going to have spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie and you want to watch the movie, now would be a good time to pause and then come back.
Please.
But anyways, they pan out and it's credits.
Yep. I'm surprised there was not an ad break in the credits. Though there could have been, because I didn't stay for the credits.
I was going to say the same. Thank you.
So the director has one directing credit on IMDb, and that is for The Adventures of Young Indiana Jones, which I've never seen.
I didn't even know it was a show.
It is. And the rest of his credits are just for stunt coordinating. Good movies that he was stunt coordinating, but that's all he was doing.
Yeah. I did want to share. So I know I showed you guys a Roger Ebert quote last time, and I found another one. So I figured I love the way that this man describes these movies. So Christian readers and audiences are the base here, but it's hard to imagine that this incarnation of the story will persuade anyone else to find the Lord unless they're sitting in the theater praying for the dialogue or special effects to improve. He has another sentence that says, this is essentially an airport movie with an evangelical spin, but it lacks the self-awareness to turn such a wild concept into a guilty pleasure. They start off in JFK International Airport with this really upbeat music.
Yes, the music choices throughout the movie are strange.
They're very churchy.
But also dramatic in not dramatic scenes. Like, there's some, like, drum lines that come in that are super intense, and they're just having a conversation. And I'm like, it's completely unnecessary. The airport, I believe I read, was actually in Amsterdam.
Liars!
Yeah, I think. It's definitely an A. Pretty sure it's Amsterdam. That's where we start out with Chloe, the daughter, in the airport, getting off of a flight, coming home to see her family for her dad's birthday. Her dad being Nicolas Cage.
She calls her mom and finds out that her dad has to work, or has been called in.
Indeed. And we find out pretty quickly that Chloe is not religious. Sounds like, I'm not sure if she's completely against religion, or her mom has just tried to hammer it down her throat so much that she's tired of it, or just pushing back against her mom, who has recently found God. From the very small amount we see of her mom, she's ultra religious, has crosses everywhere, wears a Jesus fish necklace, and is constantly just spewing Bible verses, pretty much. And this is a newfound thing for the mom.
Which I can relate to.
Right. So Chloe then brings us to Chad Michael Murray's character, Buck. Who is...
I literally wrote Chad Michael Murray. Yum.
Okay. He's probably the better part of this movie. Like,
yes.
He's trying to make it work.
Oh, yeah. It's really funny, though, because I also feel that he has a very standard way of acting, if you can put it that way, because everything I've ever seen him in, he has the exact same emotional response to a lot of situations. His face does the same thing.
I mean, you could say the same for Nick Cage.
They just grouped a bunch of people together.
They did. So a lot of one-note actors in one movie.
And the acting in this movie was A+.
Okay.
You can't even, like, even though I'm being funny, you can't even laugh.
No. So we're introduced to Buck, played by Chad Michael Murray, and he's an investigative journalist. Having a conversation in the airport with a very loudmouth religious Karen, pretty much.
Yes.
Who's just trying to make him feel bad for, I guess, things he's reported on, or...
That's what you kind of get. They never really surface what it is, but he does have a lot of people coming up to him at the airport,
right,
which implies that a lot of people see what he does.
Yeah.
And then she just kind of takes it upon herself to be like, hey, have we told you about the good word today? And Chad Michael Murray's like, no, but I bet you're about to.
So Chloe sees this and takes it upon herself to step in and yell at the lady, or not yell, but tell her off. And
which she admits later is very uncharacteristic of her.
Sure.
She's done it in her head practicing towards her mom.
Okay. Yeah. So this lady was her mom's surrogate, pretty much.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's how Buck and Chloe meet. They have a little chat in a coffee shop, get to know each other, and I guess that's when he decides he loves her.
No, you're missing when the drama hit. The ball dropped right there because... So they're cutting in and out from, like, Chloe and the dad, because the dad just parked. He found the flight attendant, who we later meet as Hattie. He took his wedding ring off in the car. He's coming up the escalator, and the flight attendant is playing with his cap.
Right.
And so then Chloe sees that, and she's like, sus. And so he sees her, and he's like, Chloe!
He rips his hat back from Hattie. Jesus. Oh, God. And then he just tries to play it off like nothing just happened. She didn't just see him flirting with this flight attendant.
He even made like a sly comment where he's like, you have a good flight, or something like
exactly.
that very
more
quickly.
Like, fuck off, go away.
Yeah.
So Chloe confronts him about, I guess, he and her mom's marital issues.
Right.
He hammers home that he's not having an affair, so we know Captain Ray Steele is a dirty, filthy liar.
Yeah. She even catches him without his ring.
Oh, yeah. And he
like,
says he never flies with it.
I just don't fly with it. Dismisses her very quickly.
Right. I was surprised he didn't add in something along the lines of, like, his hands swell when he flies. Or something that would make some sense.
Right.
Why he doesn't wear his ring. Other than
he probably didn't think that she was going to see. He's done it for so long that...
I mean, we don't really know how long.
Okay, you're right. I just
because
built these characters' background stories.
I think they mentioned later on that the mom got really religious about a year ago or something like that.
Yeah, I know it was
I'm not sure what even prompted it. They don't say. But yes, he says he doesn't fly without his ring for whatever reason. And pretty much says that he's sorry that, she came all the way home for his birthday, but he has to take this flight to London. That's pretty much their interaction, right?
You can tell that they leave with a lot of things unsaid. He's just really trying to get out of it so that they don't have to really dive into it.
I think the movie leaves a lot of things unsaid.
Yep.
Or it says too much.
Probably that.
Okay, we'll go with that.
I do, so right after that scene, the dad, walks away and gets onto the flight. And Chad Michael Murray happens to still be sitting at the table, like,
eavesdropping.
Literally right behind her, eavesdropping. And so they sit down together, whatever, and they start talking about religion. And I wrote corny 3 times in my notes. Their exchange
yes
was really hard. I know what they were going for.
Right.
It delivered.
Can now that I just glanced at my notes for the first time during this, forgot they were there. I want to back up just a little bit to, I believe it was before this part where Nicolas Cage has a family photo in his jacket pocket that he looks at a couple times. And I'm not sure if you were looking at that point or if you'll know what I'm talking about, but it is the worst Photoshop I've ever seen. Nicolas Cage looks like he was pasted into this family photo by a 5-year-old. And they keep and they bring the photo in to they show the audience the photo at least 3 or 4 times.
I do remember them showing the photo, but I don't remember paying that much attention to it. And now I'm sad that I didn't, because that would have been something else I laughed at.
It was one of the first things I caught. The first note I have is that Photoshop. And then I have his wig.
Oh, yeah. We haven't covered that yet.
Yeah. So Nicolas Cage is getting older, right? Mm-hmm. And, he's always had kind of a receding hairline and thinning, This is like a full head of dark brown hair. Mm-hmm.
It's very unflattering for him.
It is. It makes him look pale, and it also just doesn't fit at all. It looks very bad.
Costume design, you really failed Nicolas Cage on this one.
Maybe they did their own costume design. He was like, I want hair if I'm going to land this plane.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I have to look like I know what I'm doing.
Right, because the last time he landed a plane in Con Air, he had, beyond shoulder-length hair. So maybe he just wanted to riff off that in case he got, a good wind-blown moment.
Yeah.
Landing the plane.
Yeah.
In the middle of nowhere.
So, Chad Michael Murray tells a story at the table with Chloe that was really awful, but it's talking about religion, and it was people can see God in different ways. And it was this woman that experienced a tsunami, and then her and her baby survived, right? And she had it in her that God saved her and her baby, and so she was
took her other 2 kids.
But yeah, that's what it was. Correct. Yes. And so, Chloe was having a hard time with that. And then I guess the next day she dies. And that was the only, the mother dies. I'm sorry.
Did
next
she?
day. Yeah. Okay. So hold on. Let me back up. So, the tsunami, she's holding onto her baby. That's all she could do. She loses her 2 kids. Yep. Then she praises God for saving her and her baby.
Right.
They try and evacuate the city because they're afraid of, additional events.
Sure.
And she says she can't leave because she wants to see if her children come back to her. But then that night a mudslide happens, buries the whole town in 10 feet of mud.
That's right. Okay.
And then she dies there.
Gotcha. What about the baby?
They don't recap on
Is the baby Chad Michael Murray?
That would be such a strange series of events. He's like, surprise! That baby was me. And so...
before you go on, what I got out of that story...
was nothing?
It was actually something that I was told a long time ago, probably in therapy, that you have to look for the good in things, or look for things that make you happy in life, I guess. Mm-hmm. And not to say that this movie has any sort of substance or lessons to be learned or anything, but it's kind of along the lines of what I was told then, in that if you go into, you have to kind of equate it, looking for happiness or finding the happiness, to going into a room and just identifying things that are yellow, for instance. So if you have that in your mind, you'll go in and you'll immediately see everything that's yellow. And that's, I guess that's kind of what, he didn't use the colors like I did.
Sure.
But just as far as finding your own happiness and having to look for it. And that's when people start seeing God, or, getting into religion.
Right.
things like that. So then they see God in everything, every event that happens. So yeah.
It's such a hard thing because like this triggered me a little bit. And I don't want to make this podcast dark, so we're just going to keep this really brief. But, I struggled for a really long time. I was super active in the church. And then, I'm gay. Hi. And I came out. Not at that time, but I knew that about myself. I just didn't really tell anybody except my closest friends. And I do remember that, I was involved in a church that didn't believe in that. And when he started, preaching that me and the people I associated with were going to be in hell, it was like the church turned its back on me. Mm-hmm. And I know that's not the case for everyone, especially as an adult now. I know that there are places that I could go where I would feel welcome. Mm-hmm. But that was super traumatizing as a young adult, like to feel like the place that you grew up in didn't have your back.
Right.
And so the beginning of this movie, especially that little talk between Karen and Chad Michael Murray, yeah.
Yeah.
It was rough. But, yeah. Anyways. That story was the only time in the entire movie that, like, I felt a stir of emotion. And only because of the story. Not even the acting, because the acting was pretty terrible. But the story jerked me. And that should tell you why this scored a 1% on Rotten Tomatoes. So,
I mean, there's a lot more that could tell you why it scored.
Like this next
1%.
part that I wrote down?
What did you write down?
So, this worker at the airport drives up and recognizes Chloe and hands her an envelope and tells her to give it to her dad. And she opens it, and it's fucking tickets to U2. I wrote, oh my god, what the...
But they're not even for her, right?
No, they're not.
That was confusing to me at first.
It was for me too, but later in the movie you realize that he had bought the tickets for that night in London.
Right.
2 tickets.
Why did the guy give them to Chloe?
I guess if she were to see her father.
It didn't make sense.
That doesn't make sense now that I'm saying it in a sentence.
Like they were meant for him and Hattie as an overnight in London. Mm-hmm. But the driver came up, gave him to Chloe. But the driver already knew that he was going to be in London for the concert. So why would she also be? It doesn't make sense.
I mean, he hadn't left yet. So maybe he was under the impression that, you know what? We're not going to dive into it because you know why it was like that?
Because it's a bad movie.
Because it's a bad movie. And because they wanted to show you that scene. They needed to show you that scene so that Chloe would know the dealio with her dad.
I guess. Sure.
Because she's already suspected it pretty high, but that solidified it.
And like she's also obviously a millennial, so she has zero interest in U2.
Y'all remember whenever we all got the album? iPhone users?
Jesus. Bad idea, Apple. Come on.
That was pretty funny.
No.
Yeah, because I even wrote, I missed the ticket exchange. I didn't understand. But later in the movie, they don't recap it, but they touch it again, and so you can kind of figure it out. So at that point, they talk for a little bit. Chad Michael Murray boards the same plane where Captain Ray, Nicolas Cage, he's piloting that plane, right? So they're all on the plane. You start to kind of meet some of the guests.
So
I wrote down, go ahead.
What'd you write down?
I said, Bernie?
So the first thing that I wrote down for as far as the flight goes is that there were an abnormal amount of children on the flight. And it was immediately set up because they were all going to disappear and cause chaos. Mm-hmm. I've been on flights with a lot of kids, but it's like every other person on that flight was a mom.
Was a child.
And I mean, how many children are traveling from JFK to London?
There might be a convention.
A kid convention?
Something that attracts parents who can afford a trip to London convention for their kids.
That doesn't seem likely.
Yeah, like the Wiggles in town. Same night as U2. which to decide, which to go to.
Yes, a universally hard decision.
The older gentleman that's in the chair with his wife looked like Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, he did.
And then she thinks that Chad Michael Murray is Frank Sinatra.
Because the resemblance is uncanny.
That made me laugh. Oh, in what world? Oh, this sweet old lady.
No.
You can just tell that they're trying to be humorous and just
There's a few
failing.
parts that they try to be funny, and it's all cringeworthy.
Yes.
None of it. I laughed once, and we'll get to it. But it was at the expense of the person who got kicked off of a plane.
I was going to say, I felt really bad last night because I knew going into this movie that it was going to be bad. Mm-hmm. And so I had a light heart about it. But I think the way that Liv was watching it was more interest because she still doesn't really understand that we're watching terrible movies.
Right.
And so she was super invested. She wanted to watch it with me. And
we will also watch good movies.
Oh, yeah.
So it will probably be terrible to the other person, but a good movie nonetheless.
Yeah,
like when I get you to watch Underwater.
That's literally a matter of opinion. Anyways, and so I laughed a lot in places I should not have, and it very much confused her. She's such a good sport.
So in between the shots on the plane, we see Chloe and her mom interacting a bit. We're introduced to the little brother, Raimi, and he likes baseball, apparently, because she got him the most generic gift.
A baseball mitt.
Yeah, which he's super pumped about.
I almost said bat, that's why I had to go mat. I wonder if that's how Moira Rose gets her.
No.
Baseball mat. Her octaves are everywhere.
I had just had my eyelashes dyed. Everything was cloudy.
Anyways.
So she has, a tense conversation with her mom.
And as they're walking into the house, they do not hesitate to show you all the religious items in her home.
They
just
hammer
again
it home.
To really make sure that you understand that she
has
is
like a little nook that has a Bible, and
it was a shrine.
Yeah, but it was an inset shrine, so it was like a little nook.
Yes,
it was weird. And there's a Bible in like every room, in case you forget yours. Right. I guess.
Man, I gotta look up that verse real quick.
Yeah, I mean, I have nothing creative to say. So they have a tense conversation regarding religion, pretty much, and that's about the extent of it.
Oh, I laughed at the fact that there was this kind of channels into me liking really dumb rom-coms, but at one point in time, Chloe is talking about, when Chloe is introduced to Chad Michael Murray's character, he says, "My friends call me Buck," or something like that, and she pokes fun at him. But then when she's talking to her mom about that interaction, she's like, "Buck Williams." Like, she's supposed to know who he is. And she's like, "Oh, sorry, it's the reporter," or whatever. And that made me laugh because it was so unnecessary. Again, this is just the movie really trying to, win some hearts with these characters and failing.
And she, whenever they meet also, she's like, "My name is Chloe. My friends call me Chloe."
Yeah!
And oh my God, that is so adorable. They're in love.
This movie had to move really fast to get to all this epic action.
Nothing happens for 30 minutes.
Nothing happens until the last 20 minutes.
I know, but the event, the rapture event, happens at pretty much the 30-minute mark. And, I mean, because I paused it, because I was like, this is taking a long time. Buck, kisses Chloe goodbye on the cheek. They knew each other for not even an hour.
Pants, they're in love.
I guess.
Pants. Sometimes you just meet that person.
Yep.
And you just know. And they knew.
So on the plane, we slowly kind of meet the characters on the plane. An older couple, a woman with, I guess, dementia or Alzheimer's.
One of the two. You can tell it's cute because her husband clearly knows that she suffers from it, but allows her to just be happy and interact with people the way that she
even
wants.
says, like, sorry, he forgets things a lot.
Yeah, that was actually cute.
It was cute. And
That's because like it gave me like grandma and grandpa vibes.
right.
That's
I'm
just
like,
always
one
so
of you is
sweet.
gonna die, and this is sad.
Oh, I know. You immediately
didn't
know.
she
You
get
just
raptured?
start catching people. Is it her? Like it's not her fault that she can't remember God.
It's the one time you get to be offensive this week.
Oh God.
So yes, we're introduced to the different people in first class, which is the old couple. Chad Michael Murray is there with his cameraman, I suppose,
Yes.
sitting next to him. There is a very Texas-based looking businessman in the back. There's also a woman played by Jordan Sparks with her daughter, who quickly reveals that her husband is a famous baseball player. Is it baseball?
I don't remember what sport it was, but it was like some famous celebrity who plays.
Baseball or
They said throwing arms, so I don't know if it was football or baseball. I only
Probably
remember
football.
because they were talking about gambling.
right. We'll go with football.
Yeah.
All right.
They're just basically kind of showing like all these people and their different sins, if you would call it that. Or their
Sure.
vices. You don't want to call it vices. What would you call that?
Well, I don't think they're going into that yet. They're very much showing just like the vast, stark differences between everybody. Not necessarily what's wrong with them, all of them. Jordan Sparks' daughter is with her. They refer to her husband's throwing arm and how he will hopefully be in his next game. And across from them is
it's a gentleman that is a gambler, like a guy who bets or whatever. I put names. Oh, his name's Melvin.
yes.
I put gambler next to him. That's
So
right.
Melvin is the smaller guy on the plane.
Who
and he's-
is very defensive. You can tell that he's gotten a lot of shit for.
Yeah, he's definitely playing just like the angry little man.
Yeah.
Like that's the
The most PC way to put it.
yeah. I mean that's the whole scope of the character,
Right.
pretty much.
We don't get a whole lot from him other than clearly he like is trying to be a tough guy.
Right. To make up for his height. Yeah. So also in first class is a man of Middle Eastern descent, I assume.
I think he's Muslim.
Sure. His name in the movie is Hasid. And again, he's just kind of playing into that character stereotypes. You kind of know from the beginning that he's going to be pinned as some sort of terrorist by the little guy.
Right.
That's
Which is so sad because he's actually like, we don't have to cover this too much, but why didn't he get raptured? Is it only Christians?
I don't know.
Is that weird to ask that?
No.
Because they don't really in the whole movie that we saw, he was very kind. Like, yes, he had freakouts, but so did the entire plane.
Right.
But even in the end, he goes and sits by that elderly woman to comfort her because she's scared.
Right.
And he was being kind.
Yeah.
And so to me, it was like, because he doesn't know God, like I got fired up about it and I was trying to find something on it. Maybe I'll just have to read the books to figure out who his character was, although that's not always mirrored in movies.
I highly doubt any of these people are in the books.
And when I was looking it up, it said, well, maybe not.
I mean, I don't know. I will say my history with this series is I read the YA novels that were based on the adult Left Behind books. So it was pretty different. I don't have the comparative knowledge of the adult books. I just remember seeing them as a kid. Yeah. So I don't know if he's in it or not. But when we get into the coach area of the plane is when we start seeing all the mothers and all their babies going to the Mother Baby Wiggles convention.
I forgot we talked about that. You're so dumb.
And
I was like, what are you talking?
yeah, it's set up in the beginning. The
Oh, yeah.
Wiggles convention. I mean, again, I knew right from seeing that this is all set up because all these babies are going to go.
Yeah. Which is horrific.
And if we back up just a little bit, back to first class, there was also a blonde woman who came onto the plane after.
It was like right as they were closing the doors.
Right. So she's dressed in mostly black, has very big sunglasses on the
She's trying to
entire
hide.
time. And she doesn't really say much in the beginning, right?
You're forgetting there was also, I think he plays kind of a significant role. There was a guy on the plane that was also kind of like techie or really into conspiracy theories. And the only reason I say that is because he kind of starts some of the pandemonium too.
Sure. He's very much from the beginning spouting things about UFOs and conspiracies and
Area
how
51.
Yeah. And just kind of one of those people, again, fitting a stereotype for someone to later cause issues.
Correct.
So again, about 30 minutes in, Chloe and her little brother are walking through the food court, the mall, and decide to stop and have this heartfelt, touching moment after she almost lost him at the mall. He ran off to see a drone and was like, "Oh, let's buy it. It's only a few $100s." And she's like, "Yeah, no. I bought you a baseball glove." Fly that
What a
around.
selfish sister.
Right? So they stop in the middle of the food court and she just hugs him super tight and just tight enough that he fucking disappears.
I screamed.
I rewound.
And I started laughing super hard.
It was the fact that this movie was in theaters kills me because it was such a cheesy way to do this. And she's hugging him, and then the screen kind of like pulsates and flashes, and it's just his clothes. She's hugging his clothes.
Literally his pants drop.
Yeah.
And she's just holding his shirt. And I was looking down because I was typing a note from the scene before. And as I look up, it's right as the clothes are falling, and I went, "Oh!" And I think a part of me was just really empathetic. Like,
I felt no empathy.
I'm a very empathetic person, guys. I was trying to imagine what that would feel like, but at the same time, it was like, that's how they chose to do it.
And she's walking through the mall, or she's running through the mall.
She's literally still holding the clothes, and people just start screaming.
Yes, and she starts putting his stuff in his backpack. She gets all of his clothes.
They never even talk about it, that she just like kind of knows what's going on too, because there's all this chaos going
She's
on
not
around
panicked.
her, and
I mean,
she's not
scared. She's surprised, but she's
very
not panicked like
collected about
everybody
it.
else.
Yeah.
And it shows, it takes you through the mall, and the first thing that I noticed, aside from everybody panicking, was there's clothes falling from the roof.
Oh my.
Who was up there?
Who was dangling their babies over the balcony?
I mean, yeah, adults got taken too.
Yeah.
But who was in the middle of the mall
Walking
hanging
on
from
air.
the ceiling? God walks on air. Water, not air.
I was like, something about this is off. But yeah, that was very strange, and I'm so glad that you pointed that out, because yeah, that wouldn't make any sense unless people were getting upset and throwing the clothes over the balcony.
What would have been awesome is, you know how they have in some of the bigger malls, they have those trampolines that you hook yourself to, and it's like the bungee trampoline.
Yeah.
If like it showed some kids or adults just like bungeeing, and then one of them just like in midair, it just poofs, and it's just their clothes. That
It would
then
just be
that
like
would explain the
slightly
raining
off
down.
screen. It would go up with the person and come down with the
without a
clothes.
person.
It was a very strange way to.
Yeah.
It was just very strange.
Right. And people apparently, whenever a rapture event occurs, immediately start looting. They immediately get beyond their panic of losing their loved ones and start taking TVs and electronics.
It
And clothes.
very much reminded me, and I'm so sorry if this triggers people, of when COVID hit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the toilet paper ran out.
Right.
Okay, guys, who needs that much toilet paper and hand sanitizer? And who's the asshole that tried to sell water bottles for like $30 a piece? Fuck those guys. That's why you didn't get taken in the rapture. So I have to tell you, as she's running through the mall, if we're over that scene, as she's running through the mall and she's getting kind of towards the exit, that car like rams through the mall.
Yeah.
And I have a note that says, oh my God, who puts a busy highway that close to a mall? Because the speed in which that car would have had to have been going for that long.
And the event took place probably about 3 to 4 minutes between...
As we were talking, I started thinking about that.
Between the event happened, 3 to 4 minutes for her to gather all of his stuff and get to where this car smashes through. How long was this car going? Where did it come from?
Yeah.
Because if it drove straight through a parking lot, there's no way that it didn't hit anybody.
No!
There's no way that...
And there was no driver, guys. We should probably say that.
Right.
There was a passenger.
There was a passenger who was
not a
knocked
driver.
out or dead.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that doesn't make sense.
No, it didn't line up at all.
No.
But maybe they were doing it by square footage.
What are you talking about?
This 100 square foot we're taking to heaven first. Now this 100 square foot we're taking...
I don't think Jesus works in square feet.
Jesus works in mysterious ways.
Yeah, square feet is not mysterious.
How do you know?
Because I understand it.
You don't understand why he's only doing a square foot at a time, though.
It just doesn't seem economical for him to just do a square foot at a time.
Economical? He's God, pants.
You're talking about Jesus or God?
I think it's God works in mysterious ways. I did say Jesus. Guys,
Get your religious figures straight.
There are a lot of holes, okay? And I just remember that she almost died, and then my next thought is, this happened quite a bit ago. Mm-hmm. How fast was that car going? Where the heck did it come from? That was literally only placed there for the benefit of the movie, and it pissed the audience off. We don't get it.
Right. So she gets out to the parking lot pretty calmly, I guess. So she's going to check the car to see if her brother stripped down naked and ran to the car is her idea. Mm-hmm. Sure.
She's still in denial, disbelief.
Okay.
All of those things.
So I've never lived through a rapture event. So I don't know exactly.
You actually don't know.
No, I do. So I don't know exactly how people would react, but again, going back to the COVID thing, I kind of get the panic, but in the parking lot when she's out there, people are literally running in every direction.
Oh, yeah.
Not just out of the mall, which is kind of what I would expect. Mm-hmm. But they literally got like an overhead shot of all these people, and I assumed the direction was just like fucking panic. Yeah. Like everybody who's on the right side of this just merge to the left go to the right. Whoever's in the middle is probably going to die.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she's in the parking lot, doesn't find her naked brother in the car, which is disappointing, I guess, for her.
Is it disappointing not to find your naked brother in the car? I'm sorry, I took that really literal.
And she starts hearing something like, what is that overhead noise? Sounds like a little propeller. To her disbelief and mine, she sees a little propeller 2-seater plane just falling out of the sky.
Coming for her.
Yeah, right for her.
Right.
Yeah. Like she has some enemies. Mm-hmm. And like good job on her slow motion jumping out of the way at the last moment. And the plane seems to miss every other car in the parking lot.
Except hers.
Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of like the first big slow motion explosion of the movie, which there are a lot of. And a lot of slow motion glass breaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they do come back to the plane, and Chad Michael Murray is still there. And I'm like, thank God the journalist survived so we can stay informed. I was waiting for you, and you were texting. Anyways, there's chaos on the plane. Everybody's screaming. They can't find their babies. And so Nicolas Cage had gone back to check on the crew after his co-pilot asked him how his daughter was doing because he didn't want to talk about that. And then he goes and canoodles with Hattie.
Gives her the U2 tickets.
And then, what is it? When he's going back to the cabin, or maybe he's still in, I don't know. The point is the rapture happens. And people start freaking out, and people are crying for their kids. And you can see that the plane, something is happening where it's not being steady, because there's also some movement on the plane, kind of like turbulence.
I was wondering why there was turbulence.
I don't know. Maybe they didn't have it on autopilot?
Well,
I don't know how planes work.
I assume, well, yeah, if the co-pilot poofed and didn't put it on autopilot, maybe. But it just seems like they added turbulence just for dramatic effect.
Maybe God did it. Like, hey, fuckers that were asleep, wake up, your children are gone. Just kidding. God wouldn't say that. So
Jesus would.
He's
the rebellious
I have
kid.
to mute myself.
Everybody starts like riding on the plane, and they swarm the cockpit.
That's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah. So they all try and get into the cockpit. Chad Michael Murray's character is trying to be peacemaker. Mm-hmm. And
Hattie's freaking out because she never should have been a flight attendant.
Yeah. Probably should have just been like a stripper. Mm-hmm. Should have been good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very pretty.
Okay, we just made Hattie a sex worker. We probably need to remove that.
I mean, I think Hattie's character and Bai Ling's character
We're not going
would
to
have
tie this
been
into fucking Lost.
wonderful prostitutes together.
I
I was actually referencing Wild Wild West.
I'm done with you. You were.
Yeah, but also
That
Lost.
also tied into Lost.
Yeah.
Every episode, we will mention a Lost fun fact.
Yeah, they would have made great prostitutes together.
So all these people are, there is absolute chaos on the plane. They're trying to get into the, do you call it the cockpilot?
The cockpilot?
What is that?
It's a cockpit.
Cockpit. I don't know why it wouldn't come to me. Cockpit.
The cock wouldn't come to you?
No.
Because you like girls.
I hate you. And so they're all trying to bang on the door, but Nicolas Cage's character doesn't understand what's happening either. He knows that he kind of goes into
Fight or flight?
right. He goes into his emergency training. You can tell that he's just trying to get the plane calm so that he can figure out what he needs to do because he is the pilot now, the only pilot.
But is that what they tell him to do in pilot school? Is to decompress the entire plane?
I don't know that that's necessarily something that they say.
That
I
seems
think
like
that
a very drastic. I understand the rioting,
right.
but
something really crazy has just occurred too, and this is way out of anything that they have ever taught you. Like, I need you to look up a pilot class where they're like, this is what you do when 3/4 of your plane just disappear.
I don't think it was 3/4.
2/4.
Just the babies and an old guy.
We're always in first class in this movie, so we don't even know what's going on in coach.
They definitely. Actually, I was gonna say that they kind of make the coach people more erratic, I guess.
Yeah.
But the first class people are also erratic in a different way.
Right.
Like,
They
they're
are
more
the ones that are giving
superior.
us the actual story.
Right.
Versus the cabin is just kind of showing us just
The
the sheer
normal
panic.
people. Yeah.
Yes.
People without the money. Mm-hmm. If they don't have money, how are they getting to London for the Wiggles convention?
I don't know. Maybe they literally spent all their money on this Wiggles convention.
And now they don't even have a baby to show for it.
I know.
Did the Wiggles get raptured?
They never tell us.
Maybe just one got left. It's the wiggle.
What do I do?
The purple one.
I am just a wiggle.
And there's just adults in the audience for some reason.
Yeah.
Because there's no kids.
I was going to come with my daughter, but she
pooped.
She went with God.
Here's her onesie.
That'd be so awkward. Whenever the oxygen masks drop down, this is another fun fact. We recently watched Fight Club because I hadn't seen it in a very long time. And Brad Pitt's character talks about how they give you oxygen to make you high so that you're euphoric as you're about to die or whatever, which is not true, people. But I was like, man, if that was true right now, this would have been a very good idea. Because these people need something to calm them down.
I mean, if this was, and I don't mean to bring up a tragic historical event, if this were common knowledge among pilots, why wouldn't this have happened during like the 9/11 hijackings?
What common knowledge?
Decompressing the plane.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. No, I mean, we'll probably have to look it up, but I'm sure that it's not something that they've done. I think that he probably just did it in that scenario because he was panicked himself and he knew that that would make everybody take their seats. That was the only way to actually force the entire plane to take their seats. Do you think it would have killed them?
Like he's telling them, if you don't get to your seat, you'll die.
Pants, these are the holes we were talking about.
Sure.
This is just for cinematic quality. They didn't expect anybody to fact check them. Like, if this were to actually happen while you're on your plane,
I'm pretty sure there's a whole book that talks to you about the rapture. It's the Bible.
Get out. Get out. Oh, okay. I have to say this. So right after the scene where he decompresses the plane, I got a Prime commercial, and it was for the new Reese's peanut butter cups with pretzels inside of them. Have you tried those?
No.
I tried one yesterday.
And?
They're pretty good. I would only eat the middle because that's where the pretzels were concentrated, and that was the best part. And I threw away the outside because it was just really thick with nothing. But the middle was pretty good.
Wow.
And I wanted to tell you about it, so I wrote it down to make sure that I mentioned it.
So, amidst the panic, Hattie gets into the cockpit with Captain Steele. She's like, I'm panicked. I'm scared. Why aren't you scared?
She very much acts the character of, like,
damsel in distress.
The damsel in distress.
Right.
And Nicolas Cage is very much... I wrote down his line.
I did too. Is it the same line?
Where is it? Hold on. Oh, yeah. I will be as soon as I have time.
I will be as soon as I have time.
She's like, are you scared?
I will be as soon as I have time. Swoon.
The scene's kind of bounced, but I did write, it's extremely unfortunate for that plane to have crashed into her car.
Like, out of all the cars.
Out of all the cars. It couldn't get the assholes that... Did you see that part where they were, like, blocking some chick in to her car?
Why didn't it get her car?
I mean, they're really talking, like, people just immediately went into fuck all of you mode.
I will say, a transition from the plane to the ground that was not good but entertaining was whenever Melvin, the little guy on the plane, starts accusing Hasid of having or insinuating that he has something to do with it, he starts digging through his stuff, finding nothing. And Hasid gets mad and puts his hand in his in the bag, and he whips his hand out. We don't see what's in it.
Oh yeah,
but the scene cuts to a gunshot coming out of a storefront window, and right in front of Chloe. And it was just so dramatic and jarring. And I was like, I'm on board with that.
It was very misplaced. Who cuts right there to show another scene? I understand it because obviously he pulled out a sonic toothbrush and like whirs it, but it was a very weird way to do that transition.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. It was weird, but I appreciated it just for its audacity. While on the plane, everybody is sort of calmed down, but not really. I mean, to a certain extent.
The mothers are still freaking out. I think everybody else on the plane has calmed down. And then suddenly there are not that many mothers. Because, as you pointed out earlier, there were a lot of freaking kids. Yeah. But there's only one mom. That's two moms that are going hysterical.
Maybe they got raptured.
I hadn't thought about that. I was just thinking about all the kids.
I mean, this one mom is really concerned and looking for what I presume is a naked baby roaming around
the cabin.
Yeah. So back in First Class, we see Jordan Sparks' character break. She gets a gun, which we learn is from the air marshal that was on. Yeah, who poofed, right? And she is just making wild accusations that she thinks her husband paid everybody on the plane to act like this event happened, so her husband could get on the plane and take her kid.
Well, you can tell too that she comes from like a domestic violence maybe background,
right? Like she says that she is running away from the husband, but the fact that it's in her head that she fell asleep, they landed the plane, the husband came on, took her daughter, and now the plane's back in the air. He paid everybody on the plane to act like the rapture occurred.
It was absolutely ridiculous. And I love that, like, you're finding all the holes, because I was that person that just accepted it because I was so focused on her having the gun and pointing it at them and shooting a hole in the cabin. And then I started going, tell me how I'm supposed to breathe with no air. So, like, the main, what is it called? First Class or whatever. They're all talking. And the woman that came onto the plane last with all the black on and whatever.
Oh, yeah, we forgot about her.
They have a bunch of banter. It's not super important. But she goes, I know where they are. Everybody's like, what's going on? What's going on? And she, like, takes off to the bathroom. And then you find out she's a drug user. And she's like, it's okay. You've had a bad trip before. She's, like, trying to calm herself down. She's like, this is just one of those. It's going to be okay. And so she comes back out. She sits down. People are questioning her. And that's when she reveals to the plane, or she says her theory about it being like the rapture.
Right. So she actually knows what's going on.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So she's high. And Chad Michael Murray's character picks up on this because he sees her track marks on her arm and just puts her headphones on and tries to calm her down.
Which was very sweet.
Sure. So in the midst of Jordan Sparks' meltdown about her kid, Chad Michael Murray takes it upon himself to give this story about his mom committing suicide because Jordan Sparks holds the gun to her, and she's like, maybe it's just better that I'm not here, blah blah blah. And he's like, don't do that to Katie, being the daughter. And he gives this very long-winded speech about how he came home from school, found his mom, and all of it to wrap up and say, don't do that to Katie. And so she doesn't. And that's the end of that. So now everybody on the plane is fine with Jordan Sparks again.
They're trying to do these big dramatic scenes to really stir your emotions, but in reality you just keep checking your watch to see how long you've been watching this movie for.
Right. Back in the cockpit,
Hattie is at some point in time. Oh, that's what it was. At this point in time, the captain says, hey, we're about 3 hours out from London, but I'm going to turn around because it's closer to get to JFK. And Hattie literally like looks at the intercom because he's speaking over the plane, and she looks upset that they're not going to go see you two. So poor Hattie.
So in the cockpit, he starts looking through the belongings of his co-pilot, ex-co-pilot, I guess, and
He's trying to find answers or trying to find something.
right. And again, it's just, I don't know. At this point, it's only been maybe like 2 hours, maybe, if even that. Mm-hmm. And he takes it upon himself to just start, figuring out what's happening.
Investigating.
Right.
When he should have just grabbed Chad Michael Murray because he's
the investigative journalist. Exactly. So he, of course, finds a watch engraved with John 3:16 left over by his co-pilot.
Who's John?
Oh, you don't remember? He was introduced in the beginning. You don't remember John?
Shut the fuck up. Just keep going.
It's Buck. John is his name is John, but he goes by Buck. Yeah. So anyway,
To his peeps.
it says John 3:16, which is the most like generic Bible verse to just let you know, holy shit, he was religious. And then it just all clicks with.
I think he gets the other flight attendant stuff first too, and that's when he puts it together.
Well, he looks at the co-pilot stuff, tells Hattie to go get the other flight attendant stuff. Apparently, there's only 2 flight attendants on this flight. Yeah, and
Budget cuts pants.
And then and then he's like, "This is the rapture," and Hattie's like, "How do you know that?" "My wife told me." And,
Bum bum bum.
and I guess this is the first time. I guess Hattie didn't know.
No,
So
at least that's what's implicated.
yeah. So then Hattie gets pissed off. Their whole relationship is a sham. Now she's not going to get to see you too because Bono probably got raptured.
All right. At least she could probably still catch the Wiggles.
The
They're
Wiggle.
not going to London. London. They're not going to London anymore to see the Wiggle.
To see. Yeah. So nobody wins in this situation, is what we're saying. So during the flight, Captain Steele sees another plane on his radar, and then looks up and he can see instantly another plane coming right towards them.
Yeah.
He tries to get a hold of the other pilot via the radio, and of course they're poofed, so they're gone. And so
He just keeps trying to get a hold of them. But, like, the thing that bothered me is, I guess you don't know what direction to go, but the whole time I'm like, move, move, move. Like,
like literally do anything.
Exactly.
And he waits till like the last minute and just like curves left.
Because he's like, everybody's dead. Why not?
Whatever. And he curves left, and the other plane, like nicks their wing. Right. And I mean, I would personally think that it would do more damage than that, but it nicks the wing, and they start having a fuel leak. So now the fuel is rapidly depleting. They're already on their way back to JFK.
And, like, some of their readings, like, the gauges on the airplane aren't reading.
Yeah, so
so he doesn't even know, like, where they are. He doesn't know how much fuel he has. At this point, they're just kind of sitting ducks.
So he tries to ascend more to get thinner air so they can make the most of their fuel. And his, whatever mechanism it is to do that, is disabled, of course.
It's just so ridiculous.
And
It cuts back to, back down to Earth.
Chloe is taking a sad walk on a bridge and sees a ladder on the bridge to the top. She climbs it, gets all the way to the top in what is probably one of the worst like CG moments of the movie. I mean, the finale for sure. But it doesn't look like, it only shows her from like the chest up.
Right.
And it's on a very like pink sky background. And she's just having this like dramatic moment where the wind's blowing through her hair and she's contemplating jumping. And,
Jack, I'm flying. Jack.
So she's about to jump, and of course her phone rings. And
Satellite phones.
Yeah. Apparently, investigative journalists have satellite phones. Mm-hmm. It makes sense for pilots, I think. But Buck finally gets through to her, and they have kind of a small heartfelt moment, and she's like, "Is my dad there?" So they talk, and Nicolas Cage, tells her that he loves her, and Chloe tells him that the rest of the family is gone, mm-hmm. and he has, he has to take the phone away from his ear, and he's super sad for a moment, mm-hmm. but then he gets like right back into like Nick Cage beast mode.
Mm-hmm. But I thought it was hysterical that she just knew. Mm-hmm. He told her that they were having trouble with the plane. He was going to have to land it. He didn't know where he was going to go because airports and stuff were crowded. And she just, idea.
Yeah. So she, after she doesn't jump, she commandeers somebody's motorcycle.
Which I meant to look up because I'm pretty sure you can't have motorcycles you can't have them on their side because then the fuel and all that jazz leaks out. And so the motorcycle is no longer functional if it's sideways. And she picks it up off the ground and rides off with it like it's nothing. I'll let you guys know next episode if that's truth or false.
So, and then she
finds this
highway. Yeah,
that's I don't under even construction.
I don't know what it was supposed to be.
It was a highway near the mall that was under construction that nobody was on because they
That's
were
right.
Still
they
constructing
showed.
it.
Yeah, they earlier in the movie they stayed on the construction for a minute.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, because I remember like, what's that about?
Oh,
and
full circle.
Okay, so that makes sense. What a smart movie!
Wow,
oh my God, they knew what they were doing.
They really did. Here's a little clue. Now you're gonna pick it up.
I need you to stop making that noise. So she gets off the motorcycle, takes a truck, and then
at this point she's on the highway.
Yes, she's on the highway under construction. She takes a truck and then tries to move with like a steamroller thing. She's trying to clear this runway, this makeshift runway for her dad to land on. Mm-hmm. And skipping ahead a little bit to the grand finale, because I don't think anything else really important happens. She's on the phone with Buck and her dad, and he's saying, I need something. I need you to show me where you are. And I need some sort of signal so I know where to land. Back on the ground, Chloe starts flashing her brights. And she's like, Dad, I'm flashing my brights.
Can you see this?
And he's like, no, Chloe, I can't see that because I'm in the air. So, fucking Chloe. So she spreads some gasoline around, lights a fire.
By the way, it totally landed on her shoes.
Yes.
And yet her shoes somehow were unscathed because she was awfully close when she which, by the way, who puts gasoline on their shoes and then just drops a lighter?
Chloe. She was using her brights to guide a plane.
In the middle of a rapture.
Yeah. So, granted, the city behind them is on fire. So I don't know how this little fire stuck out.
Yeah, I don't know.
But it did. It was probably the brights.
Yeah, I think so. Just help emphasize that a little bit.
Like, I think he just didn't want to admit that her plan was working. Mm-hmm. But he was like, I see those brights. So,
but give me something bigger. Let's see if you're up for the challenge.
This whole landing sequence looked like something out of Sharknado. It looked like a Sci-Fi Channel original movie, mm-hmm. where this completely computer constructed plane hits the ground, and the gravel and the dirt and the concrete around it, it looked like a PlayStation 2 video game. And of course,
like PlayStation 2.
And she falls down when it's landing, and the plane almost like hits her, but the wing goes right over her.
I don't know why she flew out of the truck so urgently, because the wing didn't even come close to the truck.
No, it didn't.
But you see her go, ah.
And then of course, it's slow motion above her. And there's explosions that are happening in the background when she's slow motion running to her dad. And like the plane lands, everybody gets off. And I would say as mentioned earlier, the part that really made me laugh at someone else's expense was when they're all, jumping on the inflatable slide. And
I hate when I know where you're going.
And just one by one, you'd see them just kind of jump off screen, just hop. And Melvin, the little guy, he's like hesitant to get on the slide. And what's it?
Hasid comes behind him and just
it was Hasid.
yeets him off the plane.
He just fucking kicks him. And he's like, and just goes down. And I loved that part. That was very good. But everybody gets off. And towards the end, at the very end, they're all kind of standing around just talking about the events. And the city behind them is on fire. And one of them mentions, like, it looks like the end of the world. And Chloe, just in the most fabulous movie star way, is like, this is just the beginning. And I'm like, why the fuck didn't Nick Cage say that? That's such a Nicolas Cage line. Mm-hmm. He should have just looked into the distance and been like, this is just the beginning.
That was a great Nicolas Cage face.
Thank you.
So, Pants, closing thoughts?
Closing thoughts would be that The Leftovers did it a lot better. And I would recommend anybody watch close to 30 hours of The Leftovers on HBO rather than this.
Yeah. I don't know how to wrap this movie up because the ending didn't even feel very, like, satisfying.
Nothing
the
in the movie
itself didn't feel satisfying, but it just kind of also ended. I guess it was
it was almost 2 hours with ads.
Well, you have to remember that I fell asleep and then I watched it today, so it didn't feel quite as long.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I watched it last night, all the way through, before WandaVision.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Well, at least you ended it with something happy.
Indeed. Mm-hmm. But it was also very sad. Spoiler alert. Yeah.
Stop.
Oh, you said I was happy. I wasn't. That's so good, though. So, yeah. The movie itself was very bad. I'm very surprised it made as much as it did. Mm-hmm. It is exactly what I would expect from a Left Behind movie starring Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
Right? Apparently, he did this movie at the request of his brother, who is a pastor, who wanted him to take this role. So he did. And the world thanks his brother for it.
Yeah. Hey, if the world was ending, you'd come over, right?
Probably, yeah. I mean, I assume if the rapture occurred, we'd both still be around.
Well, yeah, according to my teenage pastor.
So I think the only other thing that I found interesting that I haven't mentioned yet is that Ashley Tisdale from High School Musical, and I don't know what else she's in. That's all I know her from.
Me too. I can't think of anything. Yeah.
Shay? Is that right?
It's like a dog. Sharpay.
Sharpay. Yeah. Shay is my dog.
Correct.
Who's dead.
I was going to say, was your dog? Stop it. That's so fucked up.
Let me show you. So Ashley Tisdale was originally cast to play Chloe and backed out due to scheduling conflicts. And also because she read the script. She was like, I would rather be in High School Musical 6.
Mm-hmm. I wonder what that would have looked like with Ashley Tisdale.
High School Musical 6?
No. Oh. Left Behind.
It would probably look the same.
But maybe she would have had a musical number somewhere in there. Like...
No, because that would have been in direct conflict with Jordan Sparks.
Jordan's like, tell me how I'm supposed to breathe with no air, air. And then she comes in and she's like, we're all in this together. Except the ones that got raptured.
I really need to look and see if I can use any of that because it's copyright material.
Anyways,
So
I feel like we spent a very long time talking about this movie.
we did. I'm almost done.
Okay.
So out of 10, how many naked babies would you give this movie?
Give me another scale. Fuck you. Give me another scale.
Why?
Fuck you. 0.0000009.
Fair. I would say the pinky toe of the naked baby. Because it's so small
We
and
need another
insignificant.
scale.
Maybe next week.
I hate you.
It is my turn to roll for next week. Mm-hmm. So, taking the die.
Arr!
Arr. So next week, I will be picking the movie to review, beginning with the letter R, that hopefully Tina has not seen, or at least one of us has not seen. And we'll be back next week.
If you like what you heard, feel free to comment. Leave us some suggestions. Maybe we'll use them in the future whenever we hit that letter. I'm sure we will reach a point in which I will be fighting tooth and nail not to watch a movie, so give me some more options. Let us know what's out there. What kind of content do y'all want to listen to? Who's listening? Are you out there?
Just let us know if you're one person out there listening.
I hope y'all enjoyed it. We really just like to sit here and talk about movies and, shoot the shit.
For sure. And if you want to leave a suggestion on Twitter, we are on Twitter at WTF Did I Watch Pod. You can follow us there. So thank you so much for listening, guys. And y'all have a great week. We will talk to y'all next week.
Thanks so much for listening, guys. See you next week.